So you have a tender read and you love overlanding. You have plans to do it big on the trace and some super glamping. One ideas, deep news and reviews, a podcast the first rate and here just for you. You don't have to think about it, join us and be about it. Something interesting we want to hear about it, come on let's talk about it. Welcome to Waypoint Overland's Random Waypoints podcast.
Sponsored by Midland, communication for every adventure, the industry leader in radio communication technology and innovation for over 50 years. Sponsored by MyMedic. Sponsored by Tembo Tusk. Sponsored by Shower Pouch. Sponsored by DeMoss Collective, mission built and made for mobility. Sponsored by BrewTrek. Sponsored by Hard Impact Designs.
Always remember, the opinion you follow should be your own. Just consider the things stated here to be a second opinion from a complete stranger online.
Hey, what's up, Mike?
What's going on, Phil?
Where you at?
I'm in beautiful Baja right now. It's 90 degrees out. I'm on a beach and doing well.
So you're sweating, and I've got on a sweater still.
I am sweating. To be honest with you, it's pretty warm today. Lack of wind. You know, it's been now we're getting into where are we? Is this May 1st or that's maybe tomorrow? I don't know. We're almost in May, and it's getting warmer down here. I've made my way about I don't know, maybe a third of the way up the peninsula. I gave myself 3 weeks to travel 1,000 miles. That's about the speed at which I like to go. And I'll be popping out of the I think I'll be crossing into Yuma, Arizona on May 8th or 9th is what it looks like.
Mike, do you believe in conspiracy theories? Do you have any?
Depends on the conspiracy. Depends.
All right. Well, I want to hear what conspiracy theories or considered conspiracy theories do you have?
I mean, hey, we're in the modern age of the America is one big conspiracy theory, right? Everything up there is a conspiracy, from politics to international relations to, well, let's not go too deep into it. We'll be in trouble.
The reason I asked you is because I was, as usual, I'm researching places to travel, places to go, things to do. And I basically set the goal of looking for places that are unusual and most people don't go to.
Yep.
And there aren't many places in the world that if you have the means, you can't go and visit these days, but there are some places. And I was wondering, do you know any of them? The one that I found was Antarctica.
Yep.
Literally half of Antarctica is off limits to anybody other than scientists and NATO and things like that.
Right.
Are there any other places that you might know about, or maybe they aren't?
I mean, it's interesting you bring up Antarctica. I had a buddy of mine was in Antarctica for the last 6 months on a research thing, and I think he just returned to the States actually now. But that has been on my dream to go because I want to do 7 continents. So it's always been my dream. My plan was to go to Antarctica while I was waiting for my truck to ship between South America and Africa. So I figured that would give me, a downtime where I didn't have my vehicle or whatnot. I could take the boat over. And my understanding is obviously Antarctica is pretty rugged, and getting there, because I've had about maybe 3 friends that have gone, and every one of them has described the boat ride across as total misery, like into another realm of misery. Like everybody I know was throwing up the whole way.
Well, everyone I've ever talked to, they didn't have those things to say, but they all have in common that they did it once, they wouldn't do it again.
Yeah. It's also it's also pretty expensive, I think.
Yes. Yes.
But it's interesting you bring up places that I'm like that. In fact, yesterday I was out on my motorbike and Daniel and I picked a place to ride because this is what I do. I take places that nobody goes to, and I'll look at a map and I'll be like, oh, I don't know where that dirt road goes. Let's go there. And, so we did that on the motorbikes yesterday, got ourselves in all sorts of mess. Just a really, really difficult trail we were on. Super fantastic. And definitely nobody goes out there. Where we went, I doubt anybody's been there in, I don't know how long, ages. And, I do that consistently. Shit, the last 6 months down here in Baja, I've done that a number of times, particularly on the motorcycle. But I look at a map, like let me give you the top of my head. South America, look at the top of South America, and there's 3 countries in particular that I'm talking about. French Guiana, Suriname, and what the heck is the third one? I guess it's I don't know. French Guiana, Suriname. There's a third one. I can't remember the name of it right now. Anyways, they're at the top of. I don't know anybody that's gone to any of those 3 countries. I know plenty of people that have been to Brazil and been to Colombia and Argentina and Chile and Ecuador and whatnot. I've never heard of anybody going to those 3 countries. Very hard to get to. Very, very difficult to get there. There's just no roads. So one day I want to go to those 3 countries. I wish I could remember the name of the third one. I have to look at a map.
Well, I would like to go to Antarctica too, but through my research, one of the things I discovered is pretty much everything that I want to see is in the restricted area.
Yeah. And isn't that always the case? Like if you go to the Vatican, as an example, in Rome, I want to go down in the caves I want to go where nobody goes. I don't want to go to the room everybody goes and it's got the, red velvet ropes and all that. I don't want to be in that room. I want to be in the attic somewhere.
Right. I want to go to the archives.
Right. Yeah. That's
not the one that they allow news people to come and open a book with the gloves and all that. I mean, I want to go in the back.
Yep. Not to get all off topic here, but when I was in Cairo, Egypt in 1991, so this was, before the internet, anyways, we went to the pyramids one day and there was a guy walking around and he asked if we wanted to climb to the top. And I said, oh, yeah, that sounds like a great idea. Anyways, it was not legal at the time in the early 90s. Now, my understanding is that they won't let you anywhere near. It's not a chance on the planet you're going to climb the pyramids. But anyways, back, in the 90s, my friend Eric and I, we climbed to the top of the pyramid, the little one. And first of all, the little one is not little.
Right.
And then the second thing most people don't understand is that each block is between 3 and 4 feet tall. So you're like pulling yourself up on each step going all the way up. And let me tell you, I'm not super afraid of heights, but I would say we were halfway up and I was getting petrified. It was so high and scary. So, once again, that was going along the lines of going to places that nobody goes, not supposed to go. I don't know how many people have ever climbed or had a chance to climb the Great Pyramids of Egypt, but I have.
That's awesome, man. That goes, and you said you don't know if you can or you can't at this
Oh, you
point.
definitely can't. You couldn't then. It wasn't legal then. But this was, of course, before, nobody had a cell phone. Nobody had a way of taking a picture. It was some guy that was probably, if I had to take a guess, he was probably a security guy, making sure everybody was behaving around the pyramids. And he was on the take and he took our, I don't know, whatever it was, 50 dirhams, or I can't remember what the currency was in Egypt at the time. And, and then he let us go up and we went on the backside. So, Cairo kind of wraps around. It's weird. It's misleading. When you look at pictures of the pyramids, they look like they're out in the middle of the desert. Not really. The city kind of wraps all the way around them. But we were kind of on the side where you wouldn't see. And I don't know, nobody said anything. And he let us go up and that was it. But no, I don't. Nowadays, it's all guided. You can't get anywhere near that.
And your story is the reason why I constantly reiterate don't put off those adventures that you have in your head, because every day, every month, every year that you put it off changes the whole thing.
Yep.
Ideas that you have in your mind may not exist because of deterioration, reconstruction, rehabilitation, politics, so many different reasons.
Yep.
Because you have an everlasting story to tell that I cannot go and have now.
Yeah, and I don't want to go too far down the rabbit hole here, but to bring up a subject that's probably very controversial.
Ooh, that's what we do, bro.
So I'm going to give a different perspective than most people are going to give you, because even if you listen to most of the social media I've been following lately, I don't know, you follow people on Instagram or whatever, and you'll see, interspersed every day I see, posts about, closures in Moab or shutting down trails here and, sign this petition and all this stuff, whatever. Look, I like the trails. I like the places just as much as the next guy. But what I'm going to tell you, to go along with your point about doing it while you can, I'm going to come from a totally different perspective, and this might sound surprising to you guys out there, coming from somebody that travels as an overlander, et cetera, et cetera. How do I say this nicely? Not caring is a strong word, but I actually don't get involved in it. Like, when they say, well, we're going to shut down, 18 million acres of whatever. Oh, well, I'm not getting sucked into it. I don't get sucked into the drama. I'm not gonna stampede against it. I'm not gonna write my nearest congressman. It's called progress. And progress, by definition, is not always good. It's not always bad. It's not always what your opinion might think it is. But I can tell you one thing: the world is an unending progress, right? So just use that word. It's not a positive word. It's just a word. And that's what happens, is that ultimately somebody decides, whether it's political or financial, or, they want to let's just take Moab as an example. They want to shut down a bunch of trails there. Well, somebody has decided that it's a good idea to do it. Obviously, there's a group of people that have decided that I don't want my trails shut down. I've been going on this thing for 30 years. It's not fair. Hey, life's not fair. I agree with you. I'm not arguing with you. All I'm saying is I just move on to the next thing, and for those of you out there that are going, well, you're going to run out of places to go. You're going to never bet. Bullshit. It's a huge world. Every year I teach classes at Overland Expo about Baja. People every year without fail tell me Baja is becoming overrun. The van lifers and the overlanders have come down, the traffic has increased, the prices have gone up, blah, blah, blah. All true. But I tell you what, if you want to come down here to Baja, where I am, and spend 6 months here all winter and never see a human being, you can absolutely do it. There's a zillion places to go. They just aren't the same places that you were going 15 or 20 years ago. So, is it progress? I don't know what to tell you.
But Mike, let's be like really, really honest. The people who generally make those kind of comments, when you look into the person, they're not out there really actually doing it.
No, you're right.
The people who are actually doing it, it is kind of selfish, the reason, but most have the same attitude as you. Hey, I don't have time, because selfishly they don't have time. They want to, it's like on to the next one.
The next one.
And you were saying that how there'll always be places to go. Well, I'll even take it a step further. If you're a trust fund kid and you're able to start when you're 18 and you live till you're 100, you'll still never see half this world.
Ever. Not even close to that. That's right. I don't even care if you fly around in a private jet, you're not going to see half the world.
Because I'm not as well traveled as you, bro, but I'm pretty well traveled, right? And this is something that consistently happens to me when I go somewhere new. I will set aside a pretty good, considerable amount of time to go visit this place, more than the usual person, let's say that.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing that I come away with most often is, man, I should have planned more time to be there.
Yep. That's
and
right.
I generally don't go back to a lot of the places that I visit. And the reason is because if I go there, that's going to take away from another place so it's a catch-22.
Okay, but that mentality you're using there is a traveler mentality, because you're going into a place to learn about it, to experience the culture, to see new things and immerse yourself in it. And then you move on to the next place. The problem is, and by the way, the place that you just went to, make it an imaginary place, whatever it is, wasn't the same 20 years ago. But you weren't there 20 years ago. You were there now. And by the way, in 20 years from now, it's not going to be the same as it was when you were just there. It's like, look, you and I could have driven our trucks up, and probably in 1964, we could have driven our 2 trucks up, parked right next to the Grand Canyon, pitched our tent, and and had hot dogs and marshmallows. Well, you can't do that now. You can't do that. You need a reservation. You need to be in a campground. You need to be in a hotel. Whatever. It's different. It's not the same. However, you and I can certainly drive our trucks up and camp in XYZ. I don't know, let's call it within 100 miles of the Grand Canyon, out in the middle of nowhere, and nobody's going to bother us today. Now, is that true?
I venture to say even closer than the 100 miles.
I would agree. Yeah, for sure. Now, is that going to be like that 20 years from now? Maybe not. Who knows? But my point is just, just don't get sucked into the noise. It's just progress. And when you have to understand that progress isn't a positive or a negative thing. It's a fact.
You got to stop listening to negative people.
Well, we could go down another rabbit hole on that.
When I was younger, my father owned a car dealership, and I didn't want to work for my dad. You know that attitude. I don't want to work for my dad. I want to be my own man. Mm-hmm. So I went and worked for another car dealership, and I was a pretty good salesman. But when I first started out, the 2 older best salesmen at the dealership, every single day they were like, "Oh, I don't know how long this dealership's going to last. Car sales are down." They were just constantly complaining. Mm-hmm. And then one day I had to just say to them, "Well, why are you still here?" And that's kind of been something that pops up in my mind, that story, when I hear people, and I'm like, why are they complaining? And it's when you get down to the reasons as to why people complain, it's usually because they're really not actually doing it, or they're just an asshole.
Yep. Yep. Unfortunately, in the last, let's just say over the course of the last year, my mind, and I'm not necessarily saying what I've been doing, but my mind is starting to gravitate. I feel it happening. It's starting to gravitate back more closer aligned to where I used to be 10, 20, 30 years ago, in relationship to the way I travel and what I'm looking to do and how I'm doing it. It's almost like a progression. It was almost like this. Let me put it in Overland Expo perspective. Okay. A lot of you guys out there that are listening have been to Overland Expos and understand that concept. Back in the day, by the way, it's the 15th anniversary this year at Overland Expo West. So over those 15 years, in the beginning, it started out as like 40 traveler people. And when I say traveler, I mean people that just, bushwhacked their way through Somalia and showed up at Overland Expo. And it's progressed and it went up this slope, and it's gone towards, obviously the audience has gotten much larger. The vendor situation has gotten much larger. Everything's just blown up like everything in America does, right? My brain is starting to get back down to where it was 15 years ago. Now, I understand that the event or the reality around me isn't necessarily there. But my brain is like, I'm just going to do my thing. I'm going to go back to the core of traveling, what I like to do, take my time, see what I want to do. I'm not necessarily going to listen to what everybody else is telling me where you got to go there, you got to go there. Not get involved, whether they're closing a trail in Moab or they're going to do this in Colorado, or you can't, camp it in your van at Walmart anymore, or whatever's changing in the, blah, 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 and just kind of get back to and focus more on the people, by the way, that I used to hang with and focus on back in the day. And those people are still, many of them are still doing it 15, 20, 25 years later. Why? Because they've never changed. They're still doing it the way they always did it. And all of this has grown up. It's like a mountain growing up around you with vendor stuff and swag. And, you got to have this and you got to have this extra thing bolted on your truck and all this. All this is spread up around them. And they're still doing their thing. And the negativity that you're referring to oftentimes is coming from the periphery. It's coming from the people that are kind of not really doing it. They'd like to, or maybe they look up to some of those, quote, famous explorers or whoever they are. But they don't really want to do it. And they don't really want to go to the places. They just want to pretend.
Right.
And you and I have called them, baggers.
Yes.
But, taking Instagram. And by the way, some of this is because of social media and accessibility, because look, I remember going to Overland Expo. So they said it's 15 years, which doesn't correspond to my records, ironically. And I don't know what they're counting, because this is my 14th
So are
year.
you longer? That's what I was going to say.
No, this is my 14th year, but I know I didn't go. I didn't think I went to the first two. So that would make this the 16th. So I don't know if they're not counting the first year or what the deal is, but I don't know. Something's not adding up. I look back through my photos and I've been going, this will be my 14th year. So I'm pretty sure I missed more than 1 year, but I don't know.
Well, I've missed more than 1 year for sure. I thought I had gone to all of them, but 15 years ago, I didn't even know about Overland Expo. So I missed like 3 or 4.
Yeah. So I don't know. But anyways, I don't know where we were going with that. But this is what we do. We're down so far down in the bunny hole. I'm starting to eat carrots.
I had a thought about it when you brought up Overland Expo and you were talking about negative people and stuff like that. I have a different attitude about how I'm going to attend Overland Expo this year.
Okay.
And it's like when people complain about television shows or different things on social media, I always shrug and say, well, just swipe or just change the channel.
Right.
So I'm pretty much going to have that same kind of mentality about Overland Expo. Well, the people that I like, the people I'm interested in, the people I'm curious about, those are the people I will spend a majority of my time around, and I will filter out the others. I don't have to go to every vendor and talk to every vendor and look at every piece of gear. Nobody dictates to me why I should go. So I'm going to go for the things that I want to go for and only those things. And I'm going to filter out the other things in my mind. Because there's so much still left to enjoy, to learn at Overland Expo, in my opinion.
Yeah. So
which brings me to something I want to kind of bitch about.
Okay.
I'm in a bitching mood today. Have you noticed that?
Oh, good. I love that. That's the Phil I like.
Well, this all stems from you know me, I'm a Starbucks person. Yep. And I started, I don't really want to get into it, but you know what's going on with me. So I took my first trip to Starbucks. 2 young guys, and when I was talking about 2 young guys, they were in their 20s. And they were talking about their cars, and neither one of them knew how to change their oil.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't even know what to say to that. When in my age group, when I was growing up, my generation, even if you couldn't, you would never say that aloud. That was so revealing of so much more about you that you didn't want a person to know. it's
I'm just thinking about
we live in an on-demand world with most things are just a button or an app away now, and we can instantly browse through all movies. We can now instantly browse through all music. We don't have to learn something and practice it and be repetitive with it so that it's ingrained in us anymore. And me too. I go on YouTube. I can go on YouTube. I can get a tutorial so detailed about pretty much anything I want to know now. So I don't have to know it. I don't have to recall it. Because I even now see people, they will do something and you say, how did I do that? And they're like, I don't know. I just watched it on YouTube. But they don't remember it. So even when they have to do it again, they have to watch the video again.
Yep.
It's just getting worse and worse. And I could just keep going on and on. Phone numbers. When I was younger, I used to have maybe 100 phone numbers in my head that I could recall like that. I'm so used to a phone now. I know my home phone number, my wife's number, and that's about it.
Yep. Oh yeah, me too. Well, you bring up a couple good points. One, and this was in reference also to what I was saying before about how over the years, it's changed. Social media and all that stuff has quickened the pace, and it has obviously brought out a whole lot of negativity that we didn't have before. We used to sit around a campfire 14 years ago at Overland Expo and shoot the crap about, travels and whatnot. Now, we don't need to think about it. We don't necessarily need to sit around the campground because I already know what everybody's doing. Because I saw yesterday, my friends so-and-so, they just, they had a cookout, and those other guys I know, they're in Mexico, and these people flew to Japan. You kind of know what everybody's doing, right? So the storytelling has changed. Two, I want to put this out before we talk about Overland Expo anymore. My negativity is not directed at them at all. To be honest with you, I'm going to throw out what I found in my travels over the last year is the overland community, and you and I have talked about this at length, the difference between overlanding and what that word means and camping and van life and whatever. I have found more negativity and more non-traveling types in the van life community than I have in the quote overland community. So
say that again.
I have found more negativity coming out of the quote van life community.
Oh, yes.
Than I have out of the quote overland community. And I'll be the first to argue that they're very close and very morphed together, but that's just an observation that I've made. Now, since we just threw shade on van people, everybody's going to hate us. Let me. I was laughing about you talking about changing the oil. People don't know how to change it. I come from a day. Here we go. Just put a big warning flag on this video. I used to change the oil with my dad on the Jeeps and the Land Cruisers. And, you'd go under there and you get your hands all dirty. And you know what we did? We took the oil, you dug a hole in our backyard because we lived on a bunch of property, and we put the oil back in the ground where it came from. So all you environmentalists out there, love you.
Bro, that's oil changes.
Yep.
Most people don't know how to drive a stick now.
Oh.
They can't.
I actually found recently most people don't know how to jump a car.
Is that crazy or what?
No idea. Because I think in concept they don't know the difference between batteries, electric, oil. How a transmission gears work. And now, admittedly, we've got a segment of the market now that's going into, and we've talked about this on other podcasts too, electric cars that obviously don't have transmission, they don't have oil changes, they don't have gears, they don't have a lot of these things. So there's a change going on. I mean, we weren't changing oil, in 1780 on the horses. So things change, and right back to what I said, it's called progress. So today's caption of today's podcast is progress.
But
But
the reason I'm bringing up all this stuff, though, Mike, is okay. If you're living in the city and you want to be oblivious to things and not knowledgeable and knowing how to do things, unless we have another COVID or something like that, you're going to be all right.
yep,
But this is an Overland Travel Nomad podcast.
that's right.
And you can't have that mentality. It
Agreed.
may work for you for years, but eventually it's going to backfire if you're out here doing this.
Agreed. Because if you actually do it, you actually go places, eventually you're going to have a vehicle issue.
Yes.
Whether it's a flat tire, people can't change flat tires. Whether it's a flat tire, a problem with something that you need to add oil or check oil or change oil, or your batteries or shocks, or various things that can occur. You should have basic concepts. So, and I hear your frustration, because what I'm hearing you say is people are more interested in the shiny bauble that we can fasten on the side of your truck to look cool when you pull to Walmart is way more important than whether or not you actually have jumper cables in your car.
Yes. Yes.
And that is so to take this full circle, this is what I mean when I say my brain is morphing back towards it was 15 or 20 years ago in both my thoughts, my travels, and my relationships with fellow quote overlanders in the field. Those are the people that I'm going to mostly focus on, and those are the things I'm going to mostly do. And that a lot of that is because me, amongst everybody else, has got sucked into some of the noise, right? We all get sucked into the noise.
Me too.
And next thing you know, you're buying some glitzy stuff, or you're focused on stuff that is not really critical to the actual mission. It's more critical to looking cool, or you've been sold a bill of goods. You go, well, yeah, come on, you need this. I mean, who doesn't have that? So anyways, and it's not just about stuff. It's about places too. I hear it because I'm on so many little chat groups and different things in the Overland and van life communities. You'll hear discussions at length about going to a particular place. I just went there. You've got to go there. You got to do this. This is a great place to stay. Eat at this place. The problem is that it's being oftentimes relayed by somebody that is maybe doesn't have the same intentions that you do, meaning that they're not. And I'm not saying they have bad intentions. They just have different intentions. So instead of going with the group or being the sheep, if you will, learn on your own. Go stay at a place. Maybe don't stay where they told you to go. Go to your own restaurant. Discover your own way. Information out there can be a positive and a negative thing, because it can be positive because it gives you more power. You're more aware of your surroundings. The problem is it also might be limiting what you're actually seeing, because you're seeing things based on what other people are telling you to do. And that's a concern. And that's why I've been sort of negative on the quote, I'm not going to say overland or van life or anything, the quote community, because community to me has become a little bit of a bad word. Community is sort of like, I'm almost looking at it as it's a brainwashing at this point. And particularly in some of the struggles I've had with some of the van life quote community, I found that there are a lot of agendas.
Yes.
And that's another negative word in Mike's vocabulary. I hate the word agenda. Agenda means that, to me, agenda means somebody is trying to convince you of a idea that they hold near and dear to themselves, and they want to bring you on board with this idea. So an agenda to me is just another word for trying to bring you into the fold. And what I find is in these quote communities, there's a lot of agendas rather than simply, it's not like the old days where you could just sit around a campfire and shoot the shit about a travel. It has to be in relationship to the agenda. How do you feel? How were you made to feel? Like, and I know oh shit, everybody's going to hate us after this podcast, but it's gotten to the point where it affects, it makes me depressed. It makes me feel down. It makes me feel negative about other people. I don't want to feel that way.
It's kind of like I don't know if you went to clubs or party when you were younger, but there'd always be this new club where all the cool kids knew about, and you go to it, and it's the greatest place to go. But then eventually it becomes such a great place and so popular that everybody finds out about it, and it's not the same anymore.
No, because then you get factions that are trying to change it to the way that they want, right? And then you get warring factions, and then what do you got? You got drama, which is another word that I can't stand.
Yeah. You used the word groups and communities. The first thought that I had was, I'm still positive about groups and community. But I think the word you were looking for was cliques. Amongst those groups and communities, we have these cliques now that either have social, what's the word for it? Social ideas that they want to.
Yeah, there's agendas. They're political or social, or in my opinion, they're unrelated to the group that you're talking about.
Right.
So, like, if we took group as an overland, if it's a political thing or it's a social thing, that's unrelated to overland, right? Overland was supposed to be talking about journeys and travel, and so now we've digressed into various subcultures of stuff, which is human nature. I understand that happens, but maybe what I'm trying to say is that I'm reverting back to being a little bit more of a solo traveler. And I think and in many ways, many overlanders and travelers and campers, or whatever you want to call it back in the day, were soloists. We just did things because we wanted to do them and wanted to go see places. It wasn't so much about me going somewhere to show you that I went there, or to go there because I'm meeting up with all these other people that are there. It wasn't about that, right?
Wow. It sounds like you're talking about me, bro. I kind of got caught up into that a little bit with the social media thing. And I was like, man, I went like a whole decade where I didn't post. I never considered posting nothing. I never went anywhere with another person. And now all of these peripheral things I've made important that aren't important.
Yep.
It's gross when I think about it.
It's one of the reasons why I really like Overland Expo. I like the environment there from a standpoint where we can all go and do our soloist things and then come together. It was once described as an event of solo sort of people that generally didn't associate with a bunch of people coming together for a weekend to associate and then go back out into the little caves. And that's one of the reasons I like it, because you get to hear stories, you get to see people you haven't seen in a long time. So that is a positive thing. And that's to address what you're saying. You're going to go with your own mindset. That's the mindset I'm going with. I'm going there to see the people that matter and to reconnect with people that I haven't seen, maybe since last year. That I like, and that I know are fellow travelers and have the same code of standards and ethics and whatnot out in their journeys. And it's not always about, just some agenda or some community of bullshit. And by the way, guys, I'm not beating around the bush here. I'm not, and it's not that I'm struggling for words, and it's not directed at any one particular group or any one particular thing. It's just, I think that, we have to get real with what we are.
And neither one of us is saying that our hands are clean. I mean, I just admitted that I've gotten caught up into these things. So it's not like a holier than thou.
No, which, by the way, let's address that for a second, because I mean, I do social media. They pay me to go because of social media. So I'm not suggesting that it's all negative. What I'm suggesting is that if that's all you're living for, or all you're living for is this community of, I don't want to say it's a community of fraud, but it's not a real thing. Like if we all go to Egypt, if we put 50 people in their own trucks and we all meet in Egypt and we have this event in the desert, that's not going to Egypt. That's not hanging out with the culture. That's just us changing locations.
I agree.
You bring people into an event like that, and next thing you know, you've got agendas, you've got, a community, it's called. Well, community by definition it got walls, right? You've created a community, you put walls up around the very place that you're actually visiting.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
I have found, at least in modern society today, that most groups that their first thing that they profess being is open and inclusive, they are generally the most judgmental people I have ever encountered in my entire life.
Absolutely. Yep. That's right.
And if you don't go with their flow, the hate, the animosity, I could even just deal with hate and animosity, but they will actively go after you.
Yeah. Yep.
I feel like the older I get, the more the world wants me to shut up.
Yep.
And sit down and go, bro, I'm really trying to bite my tongue now. I probably shouldn't even go down this road. I mean,
this is our best podcast ever.
It's just like the older I get, I feel like the world is telling me, shut up, stop being so masculine, don't think for yourself. Those are the main things right there.
See, I think to go back towards the overlanding thing, the core to overlanding is be you, do you. Everybody has to do you. What you like to do, how you like to travel, how long you like to stay at places, what kind of vehicle you drive in, what kind of gear you carry with you, how you cook, what you eat. Be you.
But social media is telling you,
be somebody else.
If you're an overlander, this is what you must be in detail. You need this refrigerator, you need this vehicle, you need this size tires.
Yep. For sure. Absolutely. But, you got to just be you. Go out and do your thing. I get, everybody, we all in this modern world of, particularly in social media, we all get negativity online, right? So for me, got a big truck sitting behind me here. I get negativity about destroying the environment. The truck is too big. Where are you going to be able to go? How do you wheel with that? Blah, 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 blah. It goes on and on and on. It's a bunch of noise, right? Just like, I can give noise the other direction. You're driving around in a Jeep. We were talking to some Jeep. I was a Jeeper. I've owned Jeeps. Talking about Jeep, I could be like, whoa, how the hell do you take a shower? Where's your toilet? What are you going to do in there? Be you. Do you. There is no right answer to anything. Like yesterday, I'm out on my motorbike. That's how I choose to go to my super, super remote off-grid locations. And I can tell you what, I'm going to get there on two wheels. Either I'm going to get there in a Jeep or a Land Cruiser or a 4Runner or any of that stuff. And certainly better than my truck, for sure.
It don't matter what you're driving, bro. There's going to be somebody that's going to have, if you started using a bicycle, somebody would figure out something about the rubber, you're using too much rubber, the oil in the axle, something. There's somebody that's going to come with a negative slant and a complaint.
Oh, yeah. I got attacked this morning about my video went live today. I've been putting up my Baja Divide bicycling videos, and here we go. Immediately you start getting attacked about not wearing a helmet. It's like, well, hey, it's my head. Don't worry about it.
And I noticed that these communities or cliques, they don't like opposing views, whether it's right or wrong. A good example is something recently with me. I told you I'm going to start posting some information and some videos about knives, right?
Oh, I'm out. I'm out.
So,
no, you're just a killer.
well, I had someone in the knife community tell me, "Oh no, you shouldn't do that." I told them what my idea was, and they was like, "Oh no, you shouldn't do that. You're going to get a lot of backlash for that." Because my whole slant basically was all these guys on YouTube that are telling you about this knife for survival and this knife for bushcraft, they're wrong.
Yeah.
They're wrong. Most of the survival stuff they're telling you, they're wrong. And like I said, my slant is, well, I talk to the people who actually do it, and this is what they say. And it conflicts with what all you guys, you weekend warriors, are saying.
Yep.
Everybody in that community has told me, you don't want to do that. You don't want to do that. So basically, they were saying, I think you're right, but they're not going to absorb it. They're not going to appreciate it. And I see that in some circles of the Overland community.
Oh, absolutely.
Like I've heard people they don't like our talk about 40-inch tires.
Yeah. I know.
Have you had anyone address you about that?
Absolutely. Yeah. Why are you guys always down on the 40-inch tires? Look, if you're in America and you're accessible to purchasing 40-inch tires, be you. That's all I'm saying. But for a world traveler overlander that's crossing borders and going to be in off remote locations, quite frankly, even in American remote locations, you can't deny, even those of you that like those tires, they weigh more.
I like them.
They weren't stuck on any one of those vehicles that you're putting them on, which means it is definitely creating wear and tear on other components. Now, if you can deal with that, you can address it and potentially, so you're not the guy that we were talking about earlier in the video, and you can actually do work on your truck. Good for you. I mean, stuff might break. You can fix it. But realize that that's happening. And that's all we're saying. So we're not raining on your parade. We're just simply stating facts.
And we have people to back us up. We interview a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
100%, not 99, 100% of the people that we have interviewed who are really out here kicking it, who are really crossing borders, all of them have poo-pooed the huge tires.
Yeah.
Everybody who has talked about the big tires, well, just look where they've been.
Now, look, there's some advantages to them. One, let me give you the number one advantage to the big tires. Number one advantage, they make the truck look cool. Now, I'm telling you, that is the number one advantage.
Bro, I like them. I like them. There's a lot of things.
Yeah, so you're going to create some more ground clearance. There are a few reasons for sure, but I would go deep into your heart. The number one reason is because they look cool. Just be honest.
Yeah. Most people who go get 35s, let alone 40s, that's why they went and got them, because they looked cool.
That's right. Now, they don't look cool when you have a blowout and you're in the Congo and you can't get a tire for 6 months.
Right.
Not so cool at that point. At that point, you'd rather have a bicycle wheel on your truck.
Right. Or you're probably going to be forced to buy 4 smaller tires because of how long it's going to be. That's and right. Now your vehicle is not going to look so cool with that 6-inch lift and 33s.
That's right.
You got a lowrider now.
That's right. But, it's just a fact. And by the way, I'm not being 100% critical of that. I mean, in some cases, looking cool is good. is beneficial. Like my truck, let's just shit on me for a minute here. I mean, my truck is big. It's orange. It's attracts lots of attention, and that is a positive for me. So I want it like that because it attracts media attention, and I survive on social media and on YouTube. So it's a marketing machine. Not much different than having 40-inch big tires on a cool looking Jeep. It's the same concept. So I'm not saying that I'm not telling you not to do it. Just be real with it. I just went through a drama it took me almost 2 months to get a new tire when I blew out a tire down here in Mexico. Now I had the time. But if I was in a location where I needed a tire faster than that, I was in deep shit because, I mean, my 47-inch tires are not any easier to acquire than your 40-inch ones for the Jeep. So I have the same weakness. I have this problem. Now, in my case, they are actually stock tires, and I'm not changing and screwing around with anything on the drivetrain or anything else. So my negative is only one thing, and it's the availability of getting them. But
yeah, let's be very clear on that. No issue with the tires. The issue is proclaiming it to be a good idea for the average traveler.
It's not. It's a terrible idea. It's a terrible idea.
I personally know some people on 40s that I love their vehicle and they travel around, but their vehicle is also sponsored like crazy. So the repair...
Yeah, we're traveling around between, Pennsylvania and Phoenix, Arizona. And, I mean, they're traveling in areas that we could argue are able to be fixed easier, but I'll tell you what, if you blow out 2 tires on the, the Labrador Highway, the Trans-Labrador Highway, and this is Canada we're talking about now. I'm not talking about the Congo. You're not getting them. Nor am I.
And I don't know what the current price is for a 40-inch tire, but a decent brand, I would venture to say, is $350 plus on the low end for a 40-inch tire.
If you're in America and if you need to get it in Peru, it's probably be $4,000.
So imagine what you could do in Central America with $4,000 in your pocket.
Exactly. Because they gave me a quote to ship a tire down here. It was like $2,000 to ship.
Wow.
A $300 tire. So obviously I didn't do that, but that's what you might potentially face.
And even with a regular size tire, depending upon where you are, that tire may not be readily available, but you could find some used tire to put on until you find the tire you need.
Correct. That's right. So, well, we're beating around the bush, Phil, here a little bit. What we're saying is that a large group of people are more about the look than they are about the do.
Yes. Yes. Which brings me back to another thing, us doing all of these interviews and us knowing all the people we know. 100% of the people that we know who are actually out there doing it at a high level, they ain't driving around in no new vehicle with all the latest, greatest stuff. They're driving purpose-built vehicles.
Mm-hmm. For them. The key is, do you? So they're driving what is suitable for them, whether that's a big overland expedition rig like I have, or a Jeep with a rooftop tent, or quite frankly, I've got two things down from me here on the beach. I got somebody here with a Subaru camping out of their car. If that's right for you, then it's right for you. But I'll tell you what, everyone that's camped here, that's been around, they're 1,000 miles south of the border, driving around doing something, living in their vehicle.
Well, Mike, I feel much better getting all of this stuff off my chest. This was not the plan. I'm looking at all the list of things that we were going to talk about. We were supposed to talk about Overland Expo and how important it is to get training.
Well, let's address that for 2 minutes. We are going to be at Overland Expo. I will be at Overland Expo with this truck, and I'm going to be camped in the Tembo Tusk booth, and I will be teaching classes as I always have for the last 14 years. And I can't emphasize enough that is a premier event from the standpoint is it is an opportunity to go to actually learn. So these things that Phil and I have been bitching and griping about for the last hour, some of those things you can address by going to some of the classes and hanging out with the people that are actually doing stuff and finding out whether you really need the thing you think you need to be strapped to your side of your truck, or what size tires or what kind of tires, or I mean, that's what Overland Expo is about. It's about a training. It's about going and seeing, and it's not, by the way, only about organized classrooms. Walk around in the campground area. Go see what other people are doing. Ask them, what have you done with your vehicle? And if they're aligned with what you want to do, then they're a good resource. If they're not, if they've told you that, well, it's brand new and I've went to Walmart 3 times and you want to drive it through Africa, well, then maybe you're not aligned. But it's a great opportunity to see 30 to 40,000 people coming through over the weekend. It's crazy.
Mike, I'm going to come back to the camping area and the people, but I want to go back to the actual formal instruction for a second, because you are an instructor. So you're being kind of humble about this. I'm not an instructor, so I can be far more to the point about this. And I think it needs to be said. All training is not good training. So the reason why I personally am always pushing for people to go to Overland Expo and get the training is because the training that you get at Overland Expo is another echelon, another level, another standard of training than all the rest.
Yeah.
Period. I'll stand on that.
Because it generally attracts the training crew that they have been doing it for a long time. They've really done it. The topics that they're talking about, they have really done it, and they've done it recently. And that is what gives them and the entire team so much credibility, right? And it's the premier event in the segment. So you're going to attract the best of the best. That's just the way it is.
Because I know some guys that do training, right? They have their own little training thing. They've got their certificates and everything. But what they basically do is they go to their local forest and they have these little events and they charge exorbitant amounts of money for the training. Mm-hmm. But if I took any of those people they trained and took them on a trip, none of the stuff they learned would work, because the trainers are not even capable of telling you the differences in between towing and the necessity of a hitch in the woods versus in the desert.
Yeah.
What additional tools would you need in the desert to make your winch work? Mm-hmm. And I just picked one thing, but there's so many things where they're only speaking from one little small little situational thing, and they don't know more to even explain more. They've gone to some trainings and they've practiced it in their area. So that's all they know.
It's also largely financial driven, right? Because they're trying to make money on these classes. We've talked about Overland Expo before, and the ticket prices to Expo are high. You pay a lot of money to go. Let's just not beat around the bush. It's expensive to go to Overland Expo, but it's super cheap for the amount of classes and the amount of stuff that you can get out of Overland Expo. It actually is a super great deal, because where are you going to go get a training program that's going to go on for 3 days, and you could be in class all day long for 3 days for that price? Nowhere.
I mean, just do a quick Google search of some of these other people who do these trainings of different sorts. They're charging like $200-300 for a few hours.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. That's my point. So
and
So
don't know what they talking about. Look, I know you don't want to say that. Maybe you can't say that. I can. You know, I film, I interview, I interact with a lot of people. I know most of these trainers across the whole United States.
Yep.
And I'm standing on what I'm saying. The majority of them don't know what they are talking about.
yeah, I mean, it happens for sure. You know, do your research is the best thing I could say. Do your research, get out there, see different stuff. But you know, I
Now,
firmly believe that the Overland Expo series of events is a great starting place.
right. You can talk to somebody and ask a question, and if they don't know, they can just be like, well, I've never been to Africa, but Jim here's been to Africa and he can tell you all about it.
Right.
You know,
Yep. And that's why I said it's not just about the organized classes, it's about going into the camping area, go to the moto area, you know, go talk to, you know, some of the people that have gone, you know, you walk by and, oh, there's Dan Grech parked there. And he's been across Africa. He's been through the Pan American Highway. Go ask him, you know, hey, what'd you think of Costa Rica? Well, you know, how my 40-inch tires do in Costa Rica? Ask him, ask somebody that's actually done it. And that's, you know, a big reason for going to one of these, quote, expo trade shows, whatever you want to call it.
right. And for people listening to this and they're considering maybe going for the first time and they're hearing us talk about, oh yeah, you're camping next to Dan Grech and blah, 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 blah. Let me talk to those people for a second. When you're out at camp, those people will talk to you. They may talk to you longer than you wanted to talk to them. If you are interested in the same things they're interested in talking to you. Right. And they're there to talk to you. Now we're talking about people like Dan Grech who are invited and people know who they are, but there are also people that are in the campground that you've never heard of that have traveled the world. They just don't have any interest in social media whatsoever. I've met people who've been on the road 20, 30 years and they ain't posted nothing yet. They don't have an Instagram or whatever.
No, we met some people Pacific Northwest last year, Phil. I think they've been on the road for 24 years or something. They haven't posted anything. Fascinating story, though. Those are the kind of people that if you want to ask a question about a place and get a real answer, they're going to give you a real answer.
And they'll give you a tip that's not going to be a formal tip in a book or given to you by some certified trainer or whatever. They're going to be like, well, when I was there, they say for you to do this, but we did that because it works better. Yep. And you're like, oh, that's half the price, or I could do that for free.
Yep. Yeah, so looking forward to that, actually. Believe it or not, it's only like 16 days away.
Do you have any idea what classes you're going to be teaching, bro?
I don't know. They have not put the schedule out yet, so I don't know.
I know you got to do something about Baja.
Yeah, probably. So I will put that information out as soon as I figure out what it is. And it should be out this week. I'm pretty sure the schedule is going to be out this week.
I have a good question for you, bro. I partially know the answer, but I want to hear what you got to say. I'm a newbie. I'm thinking about doing my first border crossing. The easiest one to do is for me to try going into Mexico. And I keep hearing about Baja and everybody goes there and they have a good time or whatever. What am I going to gain about just crossing the border into Mexico to Baja at Overland Expo? Why would I want to talk to a trainer about going just across a border that's contiguous to us?
Because I think that anytime you can go to a location that with local knowledge is always a benefit, even for somebody like me that's been to many, many, many places and traveled. I'll use this as so when I drove down to Baja 3 years ago, I ended up in Los Frailes because I had met people in Massachusetts, ironically, that had stayed at that, and I didn't know, that location from the next location. So I said to myself in my head, I go, well, I'm going to start there. If I don't like it, I'll move on or whatever. But it was always good to go to a place. And they had, by the way, been going there for 25 years. So I go, well, geez, if they've been going there for 25 years, they must know everything.
So you're saying I'm still the newbie. So you're saying basically, if I'm ready to go to Baja, I'll find somebody who's actually been there maybe 5 or 6 years ago who can tell me about the place.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Whether it's just local customs or.
Okay, you didn't catch what I was saying, Mike. No, they won't be 5 years ago. They will have just come back from Baja.
Yeah. Well, as an example, if I'm indeed teaching a Baja class, which it probably will be, I will have been in Baja 5 days before the class. Literally, because I'm driving from Baja to Flagstaff.
And I want people to know that a lot of the instructors fly in from different places. A lot of the people are like in the middle of their journeys. They pack up, fly in, do Overland Expo, and go back. So literally half of these people that are trainers are a week, 2 weeks, a few days away from that place, and they're going back.
That's right. Yeah, and that's the advantage. And so if you are doing something like that, you want to get into a class, you're going to get in front of somebody that has done it recently, that can give you tips. And like I said, be you. It's one viewpoint. It's oftentimes they're panels, so there's probably a couple viewpoints on them. And you can get knowledge, you can get information, you can get, maybe little intricacies about border crossings. Because I'll tell you what, having crossed, 120 different countries around the world, different borders, I don't care whether it's Mexico or Congo or New Zealand, all border crossings have their own intricacies and are interesting. Let's just put it that way. I've had one of my roughest border crossings ever, believe it or not, was coming back into the States from Canada, of all places. So borders are always an interesting thing.
Yeah, and to have somebody that just got back who can say, well, when you're crossing such and such border, if the general is there with the red sash, you might want to go have dinner and go back to try the border tomorrow or whatever.
That's right.
Those kind of details.
Yeah. Yep. And places, Baja is a great example of this, but many places in the world are similar, where the situation changes very rapidly, right? Particularly in developing countries, a lot of times with roads. So I'll give you a first world example of this right now. I drove down into the Baja November 12th, actually. Mm-hmm. And where are we here? We're about to be in May. And I'm going north. Well, I've gotten reports from various friends of mine that have gone north ahead of me that there's a section of road that I'm actually going to get to, not tomorrow, but the day after, that is just destroyed with potholes. It was not like that 6 months ago. So to put that in perspective, I can't tell you how it's going to be 6 months from now because it could change. You have to understand that. So for somebody to sit in a classroom, because I get asked, well, how are the roads down there? Well, it depends. You don't know. You got to really go with local knowledge because it changes that fast. They don't build things as well. So again, the reason that this is apparently happening is because they got a lot of rain over the winter in the northern part and section of this particular area in Baja. And the way they build the roads down here is not maybe to the standards that we're used to in the States. They basically kind of lay asphalt right on top of sand. That's kind of how they build it. Anyways, when it rains a lot, water gets underneath. Next thing you know, parts of asphalt fall through. You got potholes. And so that road could have been new 6 months ago. Mm-hmm. And in 2 days, I'm going to find out that apparently we're going to be driving 10, 15 miles an hour. And it's a disaster. So that's information that is essential, and particularly outside of the U.S. In developing areas, situations change: political, weather, environmental, cultural, all sorts of things change very quickly.
Mike, before we get out of here, do you want to get into what the viewers should be looking forward to, at least next week?
At Expo?
No, I'm on the podcast. We talked about Expo.
What are they going to be looking forward to next week? Us not pitching about something?
Actually, that's true. We're going to have Brian Bass, archaeologist, buddy of Scott Brady. They just got back from Africa. We were one of the first interviews that they gave. Matter of fact, so early that we had to
Hold it.
put a little embargo on it and hold off on putting the video out. We've been holding it. So I can't wait to put that out. That'll be our next podcast after this one.
So, Phil, what day is that coming out?
I don't know.
Okay.
It'll be the next one.
Yeah.
After this one. So this one should come out Friday, whatever Friday is, and then whatever the next Friday is. So
when it comes out, we are going to be very close to getting, well, I'll be very close to coming into Flagstaff because I'm going to be getting in Flagstaff on Tuesday.
So it would be Friday the 10th.
Okay.
This one will be coming out on the 3rd, and the next week will be the 10th. And we'll have him on. And we talked about some incredible stuff. So
it's going to be
definitely one to look forward to. And this is also an opportunity to mention to everybody, because we're stepping up our game this season. We're going to be talking to important people. We're going to be talking to interesting people that push the needle forward.
And some of them are going to be live because we're going to be in the same room for the next couple of podcasts after that, because we're going to be recording them in Arizona.
That's right. We got to do at least 6. Okay. We'll talk about that offline. So is there anything else you want to say, Mike?
I think that wraps it up for today.
All right, guys, you know what I'm going to say. Stay safe, tread lightly, and hopefully we'll see you here or on a trail soon.
You have been listening to Waypoint Overland's Random Waypoints. Like, subscribe, and stay tuned for more.